Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Why, hello there, and welcome back to myself. Happy New Year to all the Jews. And it's 5776, I think. 5776, but who's counting? And my sister's on the phone from Chicago. And her cubbies are right across the river from where I sit now. We got a double header going on.
Yeah, cubbies are on fire.
They are. We feel the heat on our backs, but thank God.
You gotta be happy for them.
Yeah, but I'm happier for us. And your Cardinals, you got a lot of teams here, Susan. Your Cardinals are, thank God, finally showing some level of humanity, you know?
Yep.
They're human. So, things tightening up, and it's fun. Great time.
I know. I mean, I can feel my allegiance switching to the poor Cubs.
Oh, sure. As well, you should. Why do you sound so? What's with you?
I think that after all those years of living in the allergy capital of the world, in St. Louis, in which I was immune, I've moved to Chicago, and I think I'm allergic to something.
Okay, so the flora in Chicago, you said, well, this Labor Day weekend is the beginning of a pretty, generally, that's what I'm allergic to. I'm allergic in these months, so.
Yeah.
Geez.
Sorry, I had no voice at all this morning, but now it's coming back. I mean, I feel okay, so I don't think there's anything wrong with me.
I know when I went to the synagogue yesterday, I had no voice, and I was still feeling like I needed to say the stuff, and I felt sorry for the people in front of me because I think they could hear me saying, like, I was just, like, croaking. It was embarrassing, but I wanted...
I mean, the fact that you and I are complaining about our voices being worse is...
Well, yes. I was reminded of the time that I was at a very Orthodox Jewish dinner table, and they started singing the song "Welcoming the Sabbath," and in Hebrew, and I know that song, so I started right up, and it took me. I'm slow. I'm amazingly slow. It took me maybe about 10 seconds, which seemed I like an eternity, I'm sure, for everyone else at the table, before I realized that no other women were singing. And so
Don't you just hate that?
Yes! So I shut up, but I was pissed. I had steam coming out of my ears because I felt embarrassed and then angry.
Right.
And so when it was done, and I was sure I was allowed to speak, I said, how come none of the women were singing? And this very earnest young Chassid sitting across the table from me said, because the sound of a woman's voice...
Right, the beauty of their voices would take us out of the prayer.
Would, yes, distract the men from prayer.
Right.
And I looked at him and I said, not My voice.
Did they laugh?
I don't recall anyone laughing.
They buy this shit. They buy that men are so
weak,
just weak, inferior, incapable of controlling themselves. And this goes across. This is why women wear burqas. I mean, this is I don't get it, but I can't imagine I'm sorry, I just can't imagine allowing that in my home. In any way, and I don't buy this stuff that it's elevating women, and
I don't either.
They claim their weakness in order to keep women down.
I know.
It's a very passive aggressive thing to do.
You betcha. But I mean, if you're raised in that culture, you buy the other arguments. I mean, it's just it's fascinating. It really is. But
it just makes me mad. It makes me want to act out in very childish ways.
Yes. I know. We're the same in that regard. Hey, I got to say this without sounding like a jerk, but I do have to say that also at my synagogue, and I'm still astonished, and I never heard anybody say a word about it afterwards, so I've just got to say, at one point, the rabbi asked all the people who had served in a leadership position in the synagogue, or currently or in the past, to come up onto what we call the bima, the altar. And lots of people came, and I suppose all the rest of us who are sitting there not going are feeling like, oh, geez, these are people who do stuff, and we're the people who don't. Or maybe they weren't, but that's, of course, what goes on in my head. And the rabbi was lauding them as, look at our leaders, look at this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm looking, and there's a whole bunch of them, and I'm seated pretty far back, and my eyes ain't the greatest. And I was thinking, it figures, a bunch of old white men. And then I saw, a woman here and a woman there. And then I saw actually a younger woman. And then I saw a young guy with curly black hair and a black beard. And then I saw something about him that sort of, I was having trouble processing, and I was thinking my eyes weren't seeing right, and maybe I was seeing the body of the person in front of him as opposed, because I swear it looked like he was wearing a cocktail dress. And then when they left the bima, I craned my neck like the hick I am. And I could see two kids in front of me doing the same, but everybody else was just very sort of like, meh. I'm looking, and I swear to God, yes, it was a guy with a full beard and a dress. Now, Celine thinks that's the greatest. Well, I'm sure it is. But so I'm confused now. If you have a beard and you're wearing a dress, where are you in the continuum of...
Maybe it's not even sexual. Maybe he's just more comfortable in dresses.
Okay. I swear, if this is sometimes hard for me, I can't imagine what it's like for, conservative Republicans.
Right, I know. I know. We're trying very hard, but even so, we're going, okay, I get it. Things are very fluid, but what kind of fluid are you?
Wow. But wow, look, there's a guy in a dress on the bima. I mean, yeah, so it's just, things are changing more rapidly. And but what was amazing to me is I saw nothing like that. Except in my own head. I was the one who was...
Right. We're all so tolerant.
Yeah, me and the two little kids in front of me.
Right.
Who knew enough not to make much, but they were looking at each other with their eyes as big as silver dollars. Because they never saw a bearded man wearing a dress at the synagogue. Well, I haven't either.
I think you're entitled.
It's okay, but it certainly makes the world more interesting.
It does make the world more interesting. And this is a conundrum because presenting both male and female emphatically is, maybe that's it.
Maybe that's it. Who knows? And maybe ultimately we will stop wondering about everybody's sexuality.
Right.
Like,
it might have just been a political statement saying, you have no idea who I am. Don't judge me by what I wear.
Well,
Might have been a New Year's resolution.
It might have been.
And that would be the truth.
As Celine just said, because it's the new year, it might have been a New Year's resolution for him. I'm going to be who I'm going to be. And I'm going to stand up in front of the entire congregation. But I
would have shaved my beard first.
It was the dissonance. I think the beard, well, it still would have been pretty surprising. But I mean, while I was sitting there before they came down and I wasn't sure, I was saying, well, maybe it's a woman who's got a hair problem. I thought it could be a woman who is hirsute, who has a beard.
Right. Who has hormonal issues.
Yeah. But whatever I was seeing was not what we think of as, what we used to think of as normal, and now we're learning that there is no such thing as normal. But wow. Cool, huh?
Yeah,
cool.
Well.
Props to my synagogue. Props to mine. So I wonder if he was at some Hasidic dinner table, if he'd be allowed to sing. The sound of his own voice might distract him. Oh, God. Oh, God.
It's complicated. We should be grateful for the issues we don't have.
Yeah. Well, yeah, indeed. Listen, because...
Not to say that everyone doesn't carry around their own little personal sexual, issues, because they do.
Yeah. Well, I know, I do.
And that's the easiest way of figuring out that there ain't no normal.
Right. Yeah. This is true. Susan, I want you to know that Laura in Ann Arbor emailed as soon as the show started to say, Susan's picture is down. So I put it up. Well,
thank you. Thank you for paying attention for me. I don't even pay attention anymore. And that picture is getting older and older.
Yeah, well, so's my picture that I had. I actually had new ones taken. Do you know that? I did. I'll give them to you. They're pictures of an old lady. And I was just like, what the hell? Yeah, okay, because it is...
Yeah, but it's truth in advertising.
It is truth, and it just seems crazy. Oh, my God.
And I don't look all that much different except that everything fell a half an inch.
Well, yeah, that's what happens. Yeah, you look the same. It's just, right, a little more flaccid.
Gee, thanks.
I'm sorry. Oh, and speaking of having just insulted my sister, I have to say that part of the Jewish New Year is that I have 10 days to make myself right with everybody and with my God if I'm going to be written up in the book of life for one more year. That's what Jews think. So on Yom Kippur, which is coming up in 10 days, that's the end of it. That's your last shot. I mean, Yom Kippur is why I'm fasting, I ain't eating, I ain't drinking, I'm saying please. Well, I'm sure the rabbi wouldn't agree with what I've just said. But I do want to take this opportunity to apologize to anybody whom I've offended in the last year.
Go ahead, get in line.
Yeah,
I know
right,
my daughter sat me down very seriously and apologized for being, not always the easiest person to have around, and looked at me expectantly and asked if there was anything that I, wanted to
say
review and go over about this past year. And I looked at her, I said, honestly, no.
God, Susan.
I said, I just spent the last year trying very hard to do my very best, to the extent that I fell short, tough.
Oh, God. Oh, man. Now that kind well, you might want to rethink that.
Well, I certainly hope that I didn't do anything to hurt anybody, and if I did, I'm sorry for it. But, I'm cutting myself slack this year, and I'm assuming that God, if there is a God, would be on my side.
Would be cutting you some slack too.
Right.
I would think so too. But how long do you get slack?
Not about another 30 seconds. It's
What's the statute on limitations for slack?
I mean, I can't push this too much further, so I'll have to do that.
Well,
and then there's my son who was going about his business yesterday and became violently ill, and I get this text from him asking if I have any matzo ball soup left over because he's being punished for not observing the New Year.
And he felled, and he thought the right medicine was matzo ball soup.
Yeah.
Well, it often is.
So, like a good mommy, I ran right out to the grocery store and
made him some. Oh man!
Pot and ran it right over.
That's very good of you. Yeah.
Yes, that is.
So I mean, I'm always offending people. It's partly my job, but that's no excuse. But I am sorry. I have a big mouth, and
I try really hard not to offend people. It just happens naturally.
No, I know that I don't usually go out of my way, but I mean, I do clearly offend on my show. I would be offending a lot of people who are politically on the other side.
Yeah, but you don't have to apologize for that.
That's just my opinion.
You're entitled to your opinions without having to apologize for them.
But the verbiage might be a little...
Well, if you're calling the other side idiots, and and
that's not right.
That's not right.
That's not
even
right.
if they are.
All right. Well, I am.
So Dr. Carson is pulling up
he's almost
with Trump. Speaking of idiots.
Yeah, and the two of them between them have over 50% of Republican voters right now.
Okay, how funny would it be if what happened is that we got another black president?
Oh, come on. He ain't going to be the president.
I would just love it. I would just love it.
Well, but he ain't good. He's not qualified. He doesn't know anything about foreign affairs. I mean, any more than I do, and I'm not qualified. Jeez. Just because he can separate Siamese twins,
Do you think that any of those people over there are qualified?
Well, some more than others, yeah. Yeah. I mean, you might not like their politics, but in terms
of the two front runners, which one would you rather?
No, neither. Of the two, I would take Carson because he's not insane.
No.
I don't think. But I'm now seeing people saying, well, maybe Carson's going to maneuver his way on as a vice presidential candidate.
Why should the guy that's pulling even with the front runner and is about to overtake him be considering that? I always think people doing that at this point in the season are...
Well, there's a lot of them up there that are just hoping to maybe do vice president, like I think Marco Rubio is. Then you position yourself. Right. If you're young, that's what you're
that's
doing.
What's happening with Biden, which I think is very interesting. I mean, here's this guy that ran for president 3 times and got nowhere. and was the butt of jokes through the Obama administration, and manages to come out of it mostly, from being just such a
good guy. Speaking of that, David Brooks today in the New York Times said this. I have it right here. Last month, I wrote that Joe Biden should not run for president this year. The electorate is in an anti-establishment mood, and as a longtime insider, Biden, I argued, would suffer from the same disadvantages Hillary Clinton and Jeb Bush are now enduring without any of their advantages. It would end badly. But then came Biden's moment with Stephen Colbert. His discussion, did you see it?
Yes.
I did too. His discussion of his own grief over his son Beau's death was beautiful and genuine and revealed the golden heart that everyone knows is at the core of this man. We've got a call. Hello?
Hello, Clarence from Canonsburg.
Clarence from Canonsburg, hello.
Do you really think Republicans are going to vote for a black guy when it comes down to it?
Susan, you're the one who posited it.
Right
but
that's what I mean. This is what this. That's what I just think it might be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, right now where they're taking polls, sure. Look, I'm not a racist. I'm supporting the black guy.
Yeah, right.
When it comes to pulling that lever, ain't going to happen.
Well, it does make one wonder what they would do, because they would have to go along with their own party's agenda,
mm-hmm.
and therefore have to submit to a black guy, which is what they absolutely couldn't do with Obama. I think it would be sort of wonderful to see what happened.
Yeah, well, I don't think he'll win the nomination. When it comes to the nominating process, I don't care how close. He can overtake, Trump in the polls. But when it comes to voting, ain't going to happen.
No, I would suspect
you're right. That's the Republican Party. They're not going to nominate a black guy right now.
But I think we all need to recall that this election we're talking about is over a year away.
Yeah.
And if in 12 months either of these two, Trump or Carson, are in the top 5 or even still in the race, I'd be surprised. Or, I mean, by this point, they'd have chosen the ticket. I can't imagine.
I always hedge my bets. My friend Jeff asked me back in 1999 that I think George W. Bush would win. I'm going, no way, nobody's going to vote for that idiot.
That's right. Yes, I know.
So I always hedge my bets.
I said that about Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
I said that about George W. And I have learned to shut up. Mm-hmm. You're right. But I can't believe, but you're right. Shut up. Shut up about Trump. Shut up about, it could happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I could actually see, based on my conservative Facebook friends, people voting for Trump. And just like everybody says, it's because he's a straight talker and this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I call them idiots, and I won't apologize for it.
Well, you're not Jewish. You don't have to.
Yes, my brother thinks I am.
Oh, he thinks you're a Jew? Really?
He says, I'm an intellectual, and I'm cheap.
Oh, God!
Hey!
I fit the stereotype almost perfectly.
Oh, dear God. All right, you're out of here.
All right. By the way, it was a joke for all of all
Yeah. Right. I know it was. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye. So, I don't know. But listen to this. The fact that David Brooks is turned around on Joe Biden by virtue of the fact that he expresses his grief over his son's death in an eloquent and human way. What is that? That none of these things that we get our heads all turned around about should be in the mix of who we decide we want as president. That Joe Biden is a kind, wonderful Man, I mean, I've always known that. I don't know. I sure as hell like him a ton better than Hillary Clinton. I don't know if he should. I want the Democrats to retain the White House. And quite frankly, I don't for the life of me know who the best candidate should be for us. Because I'm starting to have real fear about Hillary.
Well, I mean, she's lost like almost half of her support among women.
Well, as I said, and it's a year away from the election.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I think her support among Democratic women was always sort of soft, if I use, again, myself as an example.
Yeah.
I'm going to vote for her if she's the candidate.
Me too.
Is she my favorite? No, she's not. Do I think she's smart and capable? Yeah, but she just comes with all of this stuff and this email thing, which frankly I don't care about.
But was so badly handled.
But it's so badly handled. It's handled in the circle of the wagons Clinton style.
Yeah.
Which
Clinton style. Well, that's what you're going to get.
Which doesn't work.
Okay, Pauline is asking us what we think of the defense of the First Amendment Act. I know nothing about this. Is this some right-wing thing about religious exceptions or something? I don't know anything about it, Pauline. Is it something designed to... Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what it is either, but if that's what it is, I mean, you can say whatever you want. What you can't do is impose it on anybody else. And
pretty simple.
It's very simple. 2 pieces.
Well, it sometimes gets a little squirrely, but yeah, it's pretty simple. There's also a guy named Ernesto Londoño, who be a Latino, and he wrote a piece called Latinos for Donald Trump. And here's what he says. I'm rooting for Donald Trump. I've been following his grotesque campaign with a kind of guilty gusto that got me hooked on Here Comes Honey Boo Boo.
Well,
isn't it?
Even I didn't get that. I never even saw it, but go ahead.
You didn't ever see Honey Boo Boo?
Well, I mean, I saw her, but I never actually sat down and watched.
Well, you can't.
Honey Boo Boo.
You couldn't make it through a show, but a lot of people did. And Ernesto goes on to say, I'm rooting for Donald Trump because he could unlock the potential of America's Latino electorate. And this is true. Latinos do not vote
in the numbers they should. That's
like
right.
Whites and African Americans. I'll give you some numbers. Let's see. African Americans turnout rates in national elections, 64%. Whites, 67%. Mexicans, 42%. Latino, I don't know, so that takes in more than Mexicans, 48%. So they're saying that there are millions of Latino and Mexican voters that have not voted, and man, when somebody's doing a job on you like Donald is and like the Republican candidates in general, that just might get you to the polls, which he's hoping is what Trump is actually going to do.
I hope so, too.
Yeah. Well, that is something that could...
If only because, I mean, you know, people need to understand that, yeah, you only have one vote. But a block of those votes is pretty, you know, it can make a huge effect.
Mm-hmm. Ray, by the way, writes in regard to the bearded man on the altar. Lynn, we have he's Catholic. We have bearded men in fancy dresses on the altar all the time.
I knew it.
Oh, and Ray, speaking of Ray, I have to read you, and I don't want to get into a back and forth about this, but Ray is a very staunch Catholic, but he's also equally staunch hater of all things English. I guess by virtue of his Irish, he has never, ever, and obviously is incapable of forgiving the English for what they did to his people. And he had a diatribe about was it a Queen Elizabeth or the monarchy the other day that sent one of our listeners over the edge, and I'm going to read her email. Dear Lynn, I am tuning out until you stop reading Ray's hate mail. If I bashed his Catholic Church, which is responsible for its own share of murder and mayhem, I would be called a bigot. I am no lover of royalty, but my grandfather was born in England. I'm an Episcopalian, and I am sick of his diatribes, and I am not interested in his consistent spewing of venom. Would you read my every email if I constantly brought up the Inquisition? I am out. And that's Joe Ellen, who has been a long listener and emailer to the show. So I'm just going to leave that, Ray, in your lap, and if you were a Jew the day after Rosh Hashanah, you would give it some thought. Okay?
Damn it, there's someone at my door. Damn.
Well, go.
Okay.
Well, we could take a quick break.
No.
No?
Fine.
Okay. So just wanted you to all hear all of that. That was... And I have some quotes here that I like. By the way, Susan, in all our talk about all these presidential contenders, we did not mention Bernie Sanders.
No.
And
that's because, it's because I don't think he'd have a chance in hell of winning.
Well, yeah, but why are we thinking Trump has a chance in hell? Bernie Sanders is running ahead of Hillary in New Hampshire and has pulled even with her, I believe, in Iowa. So why aren't we talking about him in the same way we would be talking about Trump?
Well, we should.
And
probably.
we should. And he's attracting huge numbers of people. And here's the thing that worries me. He's attracting a lot of young voters.
Yeah.
Much like Obama did.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that they'll come out for Hillary.
I don't know that they will either. I think they're turned off by that.
So, I don't,
I'm worried about the whole thing.
Me
but,
too.
We have a perspective that perhaps younger people don't, and that's. I don't think that
our perspective, Suze, is based in 1960s and 1968. When we all loved Joe McCarthy, when we all loved Eugene McCarthy.
Right.
And we loved George McGovern. And finally we do get our guy on the ballot, McGovern, and the Democratic Party suffered the most humiliating defeat since the Republicans suffered a similar defeat when they nominated Barry Goldwater. So any American who's watched how the American electorate works know that if you go too far to your edges, too far to the left or too far to the right, you will lose the general election.
Right.
Well, that's where we're...
To me, I keep my eye on the prize, and that would be the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And I'm so terrified of what will happen to, particularly, women's issues.
Right.
If we lose control of the court,
yep.
of who gets on the court next.
Yeah.
I mean, it's scary.
Yeah. Okay, I have some quotes. Do you think this is true? Living an interesting life is a precondition to being an interesting person.
I hope that's not true.
I don't think that would be true.
Although I've told you that I feel that way, that the smaller my life gets,
You feel less interesting.
I feel much less interesting.
What I think the truth is if you lead an interesting life, it's easier to be an interesting person because an interesting life gives you fodder, material to share with people and to, but if you're not by nature somebody who shares or is a raconteur or whatever, it doesn't matter. I just think leading an interesting life, it makes it easier for you to be an interesting person. But I don't think that leading a normal, everyday kind of unexceptional life means that you can't be an interesting person.
Right, because reading and books and stuff, help a lot. And I would, and I'm sure that there are plenty of people that would say that when I was most engaged in leading, my most interesting part of my life, they might have found me extraordinarily boring because that's all I talked about.
You know what? That's true.
Yeah.
When you were heading the
school board. I bored people silly.
Yeah, I think you did because you were just consumed. Mm-hmm. You were consumed. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I have another one here.
See, but I repented for that like several Rosh Hashanahs ago.
What, for being
boring?
That's not anything you have to repent for.
Well, yeah, it's not being tuned into those about you.
If you're boring them?
Yeah.
So you mean if you're a boring person, you should learn to shut up?
Yeah. You should be self-aware enough to know that you're boring people.
But I don't think that's to use a Catholic term, a cardinal sin or anything.
Have you sat in a room with a boring person
Are
for
you
enough?
kidding? Yes! God! I know, it's like hell.
So?
God. Okay, so here's one that I totally agreed with. Most of the time, I feel entirely unqualified to be a parent. I call these times being awake.
Well, I have to say, I feel that way about being a grandparent.
You do?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't as terrified of my own children as I am of my grandchild. I mean, if it's your own kid, you're doing your best, you're in there every day, you're slogging away. But nonetheless, it's your child, and you forgive yourself. But if I would do something that would harm my grandchild, I don't think I could be able to stand it. You know what I mean? It's scary.
Yeah. Well, you'll figure it out. I think.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it is, but it is. It's scary. It's a responsibility. I mean, I know all these other grandparents go, oh, it's just wonderful. You have them, you play, and you hand them back. But no.
Yeah. Well, it's new territory.
Right.
I mean, it's new.
Right.
Gosh, there was a picture in our paper today of some guy who was in jail for 35 years for a murder that he did not commit.
Oh, God, I hate these stories.
And he was out, and he was holding his granddaughter. And with such, there's something about his hands around her. There was such, and I was thinking, I could barely, I cannot bear those stories. I cannot bear them.
I know.
Think of how many there are who never do get out. And,
I know.
And he got out for the same reason most of them get out, because this Innocence Project takes on their case. Right. They can't take on all the cases. They just can't.
But if just think about how many they've taken on and how many of these stories are, and how it's just awful. It's hard to read them, because what is anybody to do?
Well, there's no recompense.
This person was robbed of their life.
Exactly. And there are states that I guess do not allow for even any
compensation, right?
No. I mean, at least give them millions of dollars. Not that that'll help. It doesn't help. And that'll actually
well, it should help, because how are they going to support themselves? And what did you take away from the family? The support, the father, the whatever, at least a co-supporter.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Yeah. Denise says, I think you have it backwards. Interesting people lead interesting lives.
Not necessarily.
She says usually lead. Susan is talking as an interesting person and who thinks her life is not interesting. Well, you're in transition too, in many ways.
Who, me?
Yes.
Oh, yes, of course I am.
Okay. Speaking of the sound of a woman's voice distracts the men. Headline, report finds most nations hinder women.
Duh.
Yeah, right. Thank you. And from all the women in the audience, duh. The United States, it says here, is one of 4 countries around the world. We're right up there. The U.S. is one of all of 4 countries around the world with no national laws requiring paid parental leave for mothers. One of 4. I wonder who the other 3 are. North Korea.
Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. What company are we keeping here? Let's see. Oh, my God. Iran and Qatar are among 18 countries in the world that require a married woman to ask for her husband's permission to go to work. Oh. France, ladies and gentlemen. Women are prohibited from jobs that require them to lift more than 50 pounds. And it has been pointed out that an average 5-year-old weighs about 50 pounds.
Right.
And women schlep kids around a lot. But it keeps women from being able to be a FedEx driver or whatever. Oh.
Well, and I mean, FedEx, I think, was recently in trouble for firing a woman who was pregnant, right?
That's right.
Instead of making accommodations for the...
Right. Exactly right. Okay, and, are we ready for one more quote?
Sure.
All right.
Is there no attribution for any of these quotes?
There are. So which one do you want attribution for? The parental one was from some comedian, right? Jim Gaffigan. And the Living an Interesting Life one is from a novelist who I don't know, Otessa Moshfegh. And now I'm giving you one from Alexander von Humboldt, who was a naturalist in the 19th century. He writes, there are 3 stages of scientific discovery. First, people deny that it is true. Second, they deny that it is important. And third, finally, they credit the wrong person.
Well, isn't it interesting that I asked for attribution?
Right. So I wonder if he was personally, feels that something he did didn't get That happens more than you think, I guess. I mean, people who are given credit for something, like I think like Thomas Edison, for instance, has got credit for a lot of things that should have gone to others. I mean, who knows? You don't know.
Yeah, when in doubt, it was either Edison or Ben Franklin.
No. It's Tesla's the guy who got screwed by Edison, wasn't he? I mean, that Tesla was apparently the greatest genius of all. And people don't necessarily know his name, do they? Or what the hell he did? It's a car, right. And he...
a really nice car.
Yeah. Yeah. So... it's a depressing subject, but I just want to say one thing, and this has to do with the continuing refugee crisis and the Europeans' inability to handle it. The Czech Republic, Hungary, Romania, and all the Baltic states. I'm not sure what constitute the Baltics, but we're talking about Eastern Europe, right?
Right.
They have all voiced deep reservations about taking in any refugees, arguing that they have no tradition of offering refuge to people of different cultures. And I just want to say to the Czechs, Hungarians, Romanians,
well, what a
Serbians.
non-sequitur.
I mean, here is what is so unbelievable about that. Other nations of the world took in Hungarians, Czechs, Romanians, and all these Eastern Europeans who ran out of those countries in various times in the last 100 years or so.
Well, that's because they keep purging themselves. They don't want others. That their tradition is to get rid of the others.
Pretty much.
Even if the others are themselves.
Like all the Jews in those countries.
Right.
But to so openly stand by that, what a sad... It's more than sad, it's despicable.
It really is. I mean, we have a tradition of being horrible, so we're going to keep that up.
That's right. We have a tradition of not allowing anybody who is unlike us in skin color, religion, culture. We do not welcome them. That's our tradition. Whoa. Man, hey, bully for you. Can you imagine? Jeez. Yeah, Europe, looking real good. As the children of people who ran for their lives out of this area of the world, I must say I'm not surprised, but jeez, wow.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's sort of interesting because it speaks to the sort of failure of Europe to work as
the European Union is a joke.
The European Union, yeah. I mean,
there's no union there.
There is no union.
It's a confederation of states, but it's not a union.
No.
And there's no, because you can see they can't function. So the EU is I think, on very, very, I don't know that this grand experiment
is working.
Well, we could see it with the crisis, the financial crisis earlier with Greece, and now we see this. And I don't know that the EU will survive it. I've been watching, or I did watch last week. They redid the Civil War series by Ken Burns.
Yeah.
On public television. I saw much of it, not all of it, But there was one statement made by that great historian that was on it, Shelby Foote. Just a great character, the way he talked, the way he looked. I mean, wow, would he have been the greatest history professor in the universe, because folksy and smart. And I'll probably get it wrong, but he said that essentially what the Civil War did, you could look at it simply as a matter of grammar. It used to be, or at least the way the South felt, you would say the United States are this and that. But that's not what we say.
No.
We say the United States
so it requires the same
is. And he said the Civil War is what made us say the United States is, without any cognitive dissonance with, it's states, it should be our. Oh, no. Because the United States is an entity, and it is. It's not the states are. And I thought that was the most brilliant thing I ever heard.
Yeah.
There it is. The whole thing. And this is where the states' rights people still, we're still fighting the same because people still don't get it. The United States is. Well, the European Union ain't. That's all I'm going to say.
Right.
I don't think it is. Margie writes, Slovenians screwed my family. Well, okay. Lithuanians screwed ours, and Poles, and Russians. Who you got?
Well, and I just look at all the people that, live and work in my neighborhood who are mostly Polish and Slav, Serbian, or from Bosnia. One of the, and you hear as many people speaking any one of 3 or 4 different languages in a 4-square block, walk. It's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But they're all here because things aren't so great where they came from. So, and these places continue to screw their people.
Yeah, just true. Hey, someone just sent me a little tutorial on Tesla. Can I share it with you? We'll all learn something. This is why Nikola Tesla was the greatest geek who ever lived. Geeks stay up all night disassembling the world so they can put it back together with new features. They tinker and fix things that aren't broken. Geeks abandon the world around them because they're busy soldering together a new one. They obsess, and in many cases, they suffer. Over 100 years ago, a Serbian-American inventor by the name of Nikola Tesla started fixing things that weren't broken. In a time when the majority of the world was still lit by candles, an electrical system known as alternating current was invented, and to this day is what powers every home on this planet. Who do we have to thank for this invention that ushered humanity into a second industrial revolution? Nikola Tesla. But I thought Thomas Edison was the father of the electric age, says everybody. No, it was Tesla. When most people think of Thomas Edison, they think of the man who invented the light bulb. Edison did not invent the light bulb. He improved upon the ideas of 22 other men who pioneered the light bulb before him. Edison simply figured out how to sell the light bulb. Tesla actually worked for Edison early in his career. Edison offered to pay him the modern equivalent of $1 million to fix the problems he was having with his DC generators. Not AC, DC generators. Tesla fixed Edison's machines, and when he asked for the money he was promised, Edison laughed him off and had this to say, "Tesla, you don't understand our American humor." Can that be true? Edison is a good example of a non-geek who operated in a geek space. He believed the value of his inventions could be gauged by how much money they made. He was neither a mathematician nor a scientist. He believed he could just hire people to do that for him. Edison was not a geek. He was a CEO. Tesla was known for discovering amazing things and then forgetting to write them down. Edison was known for rushing to the patent office as soon as one of his employees invented something. And Tesla, after he fell out with Edison, went on to work on his AC electrical system, and that ignited a huge feud with Edison, who at the time was trying to sell the world his direct current DC system. Edison's DC system required a power plant every square mile and could not transmit electricity very far. On the other hand, Tesla's AC used thinner wires, had higher voltages, and can transmit electricity over long distances. So what did Edison do? Families living in the neighborhood near Edison's lab began to notice that their pets were disappearing. This was because Edison had been paying schoolboys 25 cents a head for dogs and cats. He then put these dogs and cats on display and publicly electrocuted them using Tesla's alternating current. His goal was to publicly smear Tesla's AC and convince the public that it was too dangerous for home use. That is all true.
So there goes Edison.
Well, Edison was classic Americana. I mean, he was the marketer, the vicious, roll over anyone in his way marketer. And this piece says the only thing Edison truly pioneered was douchebaggery.
Yeah, he was a pioneering model of CEOs to come.
Yeah. And then, you somebody like Marconi, who won the Nobel Prize in Physics for inventing radio. Everything he did was based on the work of Tesla. And after Marconi became world famous, Tesla said, "Marconi's a good fellow. Let him continue. He is using 17 of my patents." So Tesla eventually, I guess, got some...
He figured out how to protect himself, right?
You know what? I mean, but there's things like radar. An English scientist was credited with the invention of radar in 1935. You know who had the idea in 1917?
Tesla.
Uh-huh. Tesla pitched his idea to the U.S. Navy at the beginning of World War I. Unfortunately, Thomas Edison was the head of research and development for the U.S. Navy at the time. And he convinced the Navy that it had no practical application in war. Jesus. So they go on and on about all these things Tesla did. But he wasn't a businessman and he wasn't a marketer. He was just this brilliant thinker. But so this goes right back to that wonderful quote, 3 stages of scientific discovery. First, people deny it's true, then they deny that it's important, and finally they credit the wrong person.
Right.
So I want to thank, who sent me that? I sent me that?
I sent you that.
Oh, you sent me that! It said I sent me that. Oh, you sent me that, Celine. Thank you.
It's brilliant.
It's very long.
It is, but that guy's comics are hilarious.
But so that was in a sort of comic form, very cute, but right on the money. Okay. Oh, geez. I'm pretty much out of time here. So, Susan, what are you doing with your uninteresting life now?
What do you mean, what am I doing?
I mean, after the show.
Oh, well, I'm going to walk my puppy, and then I'm going to go to the gym and do some circuit training and that sort of thing.
Well, I'm sort of going to do the same thing, except they don't have a puppy to walk. I wish I did. I'd walk. Anybody got a puppy I can walk? And then I'm going to the gym.
Well, walking my puppy is an exhausting thing. Either he's standing there refusing to budge, or he's
dragging you.
He's dragging me off to chase birds, or he's hopping on everybody that goes by to get love, which he gets.
Susan, I thought you were supposed to be going to puppy school to learn how to...
We are going to puppy school, but they aren't teaching that.
Susan, you don't want a dog who jumps on people. You need control.
I know.
You mean they're not teaching you how to have him like absolutely under control, healing and stuff like that?
Oh, no, we haven't done a heel. We've done a sit and a get in bed and
a get in bed? What?
And a look into my eyes.
Oh,
and and Ernie's very good at all of that.
Yeah. Oh, God.
You'll see.
I know. All right. Well, you have a wonderful day.
You too. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Susan.
Okay.
All right.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Okay.
See ya. Bye. So, guys, yeah, there it is. And I'll be here tomorrow, as far as I know. And I'll look forward to it. Thank you very much. Have a good one. Go Bucks! Go Bucks!
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.